use that counter pick. Game number 1 here, Yulwei. Honestly, I think that SBTC is showing a lot more. They're the ones that really came out swinging more than anything else inside of the game. So I'm excited to see what they're going to bring to us here, trying to make sure that GAM does not walk out of this regular split without a loss on that column.
Yeah, 2 more chances, of course, against high-profile opponents for GAM. Also 2 more high-profile opponents for SBTC. So these 2 teams really control all the hype matches this week. GAM later actually the last series of the whole week on Sunday late, of course, is against SGB, who looked pretty good in the first series today. And SBTC will play against Cerberus also on Sunday. So really interesting moving into playoffs to see these last impressions for these teams. But I want to go back to the compositions because I feel like it's a bit of a cat and mouse game for both teams here, because both teams have a lot of engaged potential and also disengaged potential, right? We have very, very strong kite champions on both sides with Talia, Cassio, and Zaya. So they excel if they're dived onto. And maybe the enemy team will commit to the dive because they also have dive champions like Rakan, like Nautilus, like Vice. So for me, this could be another instance of which of the 2 teams is more disciplined and plays around the dive better than the enemy team. Because a lot of times we've seen people try to play anti-dive comps in the VCS and then still commit to a team fight where they are the divers, and then that's their downfall. Both these teams should be good enough to not commit this sin. But it's an interesting study, especially with players around the corner.
Ooh. Okay, there's a couple of interesting things that have already happened. I'll talk about this for context that usually is happening here in the bottom lane, especially against Nautilus. So you're usually taking Q first, and you're also taking Guardian, because if you walk in with Guardian and you have your Q available, you can use it to poke with. Palette with W alongside Glacial, which implies that they want to fight very, very, like they want to hard engage very, very early, which just isn't the play into Nautilus, because Nautilus has, the W shield, which is an auto cancel. You got an Ignite. You're playing in a Glacial most of the time. Like, you're not winning the all-in, and a lot of other kind of supports figured that out. Palette, I think, is going the wrong idea, so now it's a lot more control that's going to be held by Xin and by Style at the beginning of this game. Just off now, eventually, when you're setting up for DL1, you're setting up for DNK, this is going to be a very valid way to play out the lane phase, but you can see Palette already feeling a bit of the pressure from the Nautilus. Again, anytime you go in, even if you hit the Glacial, you're getting counter Glacial, you're going to work into the shield of Xin, and things are not going to go your way. As Levi is heading down into the bottom lane here to put some pressure on.
Aggressive dive, very aggressive dive.
As possible. Risky, especially with the setup that I was talking about from Palette. Palette is going to get jumped on immediately. No Ignite down, as that's still going to be a kill coming through from Levi. I think the red buff was able to get it before anything else was. And Slater's still in some really, really dire straits here. They can just re-dive. They do have to be careful not to give away a bunch of damage, as Xin is not going to fall. Style takes the guy. Man, juggled the aggro just about as well as humanly possible right there to be able to make sure that nobody goes down.
We're back in summer 2022 when GAM was bot diving every single game, and they can still do it. They haven't really shown many early game dives in the past few weeks. Actually, only 400 gold ahead on average in the early game, so not that strong of an early game team, especially considering they're 12-0, but they can still do it, and what a beautiful execution on the dive. Slater actually hits level 3, which makes the dive even riskier. He still has flash as well, but they commit to the re-dive. They take aggro. Xin with the Q out of tower range, as he's already super low, and then the flash out to prevent the second shot. Just perfect juggling, so well done, and they have come to play today.
And again, notably, while I'm not saying that the Glacial was absolutely terrible here from the side of Palette, again, if you have Guardian, you lose a lot of that early trade damage that Xin brought down. If you go Q first thing, even if a hook lands, you're still going to be able to survive it and not really worry about that damage. And Palette being at half health was a large reason why immediately he got assassinated under that tower after forcing the flash. Even through the exhaust onto Levi, they just did not, they couldn't reduce the damage. They couldn't do anything about it. So again, the early choices, people, reminder, you always have to know what you're doing with your ability skills. You can't just default to something normal, because W is usually standard for Rakan if you want to get really aggressive early. But in a game like this, even if you want to play for early, Q is usually the play. A little bit of knowledge sharing here. Back into the bottom lane. Here's Xin, Hex flashing in, but DNK is ready on a gank. Oh, the Glacial. That actually gave away that he was there, because Glacial follows champions nearby. That is... If Xin could read that and Xin knew that, that was actually kind of ingenious right there, because it was it was hard to read even for a second there. I was like, okay, that was interesting. It didn't go at Slater because it followed after DNK. Huh.
And the patience was so good for Palette too. He waited for Xin to commit his Q, but instead Xin just auto-attacked, and as you said, the Glacial spotted the approaching jungle. So very, very well played from both sides, honestly. And it looks like GAM is in full control of the game. I want to go back to the setup of the whole game, because usually you don't expect Xayah to have early priority over Zeri. It's usually Zeri in the first 3-4 levels, where Xayah doesn't really have all her skills yet, and Zeri can perma-spam her Q through the wave and just make use of all her additional power with the Q execute to push in the first few waves. We've seen this in multiple different support matchups. So for GAM to plan a bot dive basically means they plan to dominate the early lane on the spot lane from start to finish to set up the dive in the first place, right? Right, because Levi was pathing down bot. Ooh, bit of a fight. Should be
Slater's
fine.
on the front, but can't hit enough Qs to really do damage in a style without he can't shoot through anybody.
But that makes it even more impressive to me, because in my mind, this shouldn't be happening as a planned play, but them being able to call out that they would be able to push early and set up the dive for Levi and then also execute the dive perfectly. It just makes it such a round and perfect play from start to finish, and GAM off to a 2-kill lead with a very, very strong start to the game.
Yeah, it's a combination of adaptation and understanding of matchups and everything else kind of coming together in a perfect tandem for this SBTC squad to get punished by GAM's bot lane. The communication that they have to have, the understanding of the 2v2, everything came together perfectly there to execute on a dive that, again, like you said, they haven't really been making nearly as much in this split, despite some of the experience that they've had with it in the past. You know that this has not been the split to make things like that happen. So really impressive. The other two lanes also are not particularly winning right now. Again, Emperor's doing fine into Kiaya, but eventually the Jax is going to be a very powerful tool to utilize. And the Talia's down a little bit of farm to Kati, who is going to become an absolute beast on this Cassiopeia, at least from the mid-range and the short range she's effective from. So the fact that bot lane is already getting a bit of advantage, the fact that Vi's already up a little bit of gold, does help out with this mid game quite a bit more, as again a ward catches DNK and Palette as they try to make something happen against Kiaya. But the roam here from Vi as well, the hover, just to make sure that absolutely nothing goes down. And they just have to turn for Rift Herald, which is there's a Rift Scuddler here. Like, if anybody steps onto it, they're gonna know what's going on.
Yeah, but by now, GAM's probably aware, but can't really intercept anymore. Bot lane, they also kept the ADC in bot lane, which I'd like to see, because way too many teams give up way too many platings for just one Rift Herald at the time. The problem in this game so far is that DNK has been completely muted, just no impact whatsoever. Even CS, while Levi already got 1 kill and 1 assist in bot lane. Oh, that hit?
Hey.
That's criminal. That should never hit. And DNK even ults.
Yeah, okay, they're going to jump onto Kati, try to make sure that something goes right in this circumstance. Actually dodges out on the ultimate, but there's reinforcements from GAM coming in as DNK gets the fear off. It's a question of whether Levi can actually press an ultimate on DNK or not, which is not the case. Instead, she's going to let him back away. But like you said, whether it's criminal because of the angle of the hook or whether it's criminal because Palette pressed no buttons to get over top of the wall, one way or another, there's no way you're supposed to die there if you're Rakan. I know he was in a pretty precarious situation with 3 members trying to loop around onto Emperor, but just not the play. As Levi, again, full health, DNK relatively low health, they have to fight back just to keep the Raptor Pit, as SBTC has been absolutely put out in this game. I think the word is squelched. I think that's what you do to a fire, is you squelch it, which is when you splash water and then it gets all smoky, but then it goes out. I think this has been, that's the word I was trying to come up with. If I'm wrong, feel free to harass me about it. But yeah, it's not feeling good for SBTC. All of their aggression is getting squandered here.
Yeah, and it's particularly bad to see Palette falter this much early on in the game. They first pick him Palette. He's supposed to be one of the star players, and honestly, he has had a huge resurgence after a more than questionable split and even year last year. He's back to being one of the best supports. He used to be on GAM. He used to contend for titles, and he's here once again in this new team now to fight for the title. In the first game against GAM, in their second meeting, he just gets targeted, makes mistake after mistake on a first pick support. That should never happen. Now he's 0-2, had to go for early magic resistance boots for a little bit of extra tenacity because he's getting caught too many times. And yeah, Palette on a little bit of a stinker of a game so far.
I mean, to kick off this game, the fact that GAM is up 3 kills and they're only up 500 gold at this point is actually a good thing. I mean, we'll leave it at that. The Jax getting a kill isn't great because it does help out the top lane matchup. But Levi getting a kill means it's a little easier to kind of abuse a bit of the laning phase. Obviously, Xayah getting a kill, beneficial to make sure that she's going to stay ahead of the Zeri in terms of a power curve. But ultimately, the plates that they've gotten out of top, mid, and bot have more or less equalized how this game is going so far. Like, SBTC is sitting at a gold advantage right now, which is a little bit crazy. But that is standing gold that GAM has not collected, that has been collected by SBTC Esports. So they have to make sure that these turrets don't just get pushed up. Now, this is a much more interesting decision. I don't know when... Oh, they're rotating. Okay, so DNK sitting here with the retail...
Again.
Yeah, they're calling. Okay, Paulette's going to get busted here because they're maybe thinking that there's going to be a gank. I don't know that they're actually prepared for the full rotate. Notice that Xin is backing right now. This has to be the indicator. Again, Paulette's not going to hold the wave to make sure that Enper can't get it because Enper should be right behind him. So Xin backing and heading to top lane means that they're not willing to move the Xayah. They see now that there's Enper's on bottom side. And they get what's happening now. They go, okay, that's obvious. The Jax is getting aggressed against. The bot lane's coming up. They're going to dump this Rift Herald into top tower, and they're going to try to get it before Xin gets here. All they need is a plate and a half. And if they can get a plate and a half before the Rift Herald ends up going down, there could be a chance. Paulette getting jumped on by Kiaya, who's going to try to help make sure that this is going to get stuck up.
Not
It should
there
drop
yet.
easily to 1 plate remaining. There's the ultimate from DNK to try to
Flash
shut out the lights,
force.
make sure nobody can come in. That's Xin hitting an ultimate.
Oh, wait.
I don't think he wanted to hit. He's going to go down. Now Kiaya jumps in. He's able to get the return kill against Paulette. W is going to go down and make sure that there is no way for the Zeri to escape either. It's a 2-for-1. And an ultimate hits Paulette. And that's going to be Paulette. Okay,
Oh, wait.
He doesn't end up getting
Dia1?
out. Dia1 hits a really nice seismic shove into the E. It's a 2-for-1 for GAM. Plates did go down. 2 full plates ended up going down as a result of the Rift Tail. DNK got brought down. Instead of play, I think I misspoke there in the midst of everything. I thought it was play. It was DNK that ended up going down. But again, GAM just ensuring that this was not going to be the case, again, limiting SPTC's ability to make this play happen.
Yeah, a bit of a horror show for SBTC at the end, but let's look at the mechanics here again. It actually looked to me like GAM was too late to the play, but they knew better, and DNK gets hit by so many abilities. No one blocked the hook. That was critical. Actually, Paulette almost salvaging the play with a really good ult in W, but then it's a numbers disadvantage. Dia1 is not strong enough. Carti can just chase down, and just Cassiopeia and Jax's power together is too much to overcome. They lose the play on top side, and they already lost the dragon for free on the bot side. So once again, losing on both sides of the map. They are keeping the gold close, but they're losing advantage after advantage everywhere on the map. And this could be yet another death.
Okay. Not huge on what I just saw out of the mid lane, because Slater lost his whole health bar to a Jax who is standing in his face because he turned around trying to get some additional auto damage in, and this could be more. Again, the issue with SPTC is all of their gold that they've gained in this game has just been turret plates. This happened bot lane. I'm guessing this is a 1v1 that Emperor ends up crushing Style in because he is a Cassante. That's a Q that got avoided by Style. Let's see if the feathers get pulled. No, they actually never get pulled. Ends up being fine. That's kind of awesome. You take that all day. If you're Emperor, you just find an ADC, you kill ADC. That's great.
It's another one for the Emperor book. Someone is keeping track of how many solo kills he got. That's another one. The solo kill master. Once again, DNK looking, trying to lure Style in. Does he have ultimate? No, he doesn't have ultimate, but they still get on top of him.
Actually gets him from a decent range, and the Stride Breaker should be enough. Slater's going to get a kill. Finally, something going the way of SPTC. The solo kill for Emperor, getting additional aggression into Style. Bot lane tower should fall. And again, while SPTC is kind of building their entire case on this respondable gold, because it's all structure damage that's getting them any sort of advantage, they're up in gold. Look at that turret plates gold that gets turned over right at 14 minutes. 1,400 to 525. 1,000 gold difference. That makes up for all the kills that they lost at the beginning of the game that GAM was able to get unresponded. Combine that with the fact that, again, most of that gold is now in, it's in the Jax instead of being in one of the other members of the team. And it means that while Jax is a threat, he's a melee champion that has to go jumping in to try to make something happen. He's playing into Emperor in the side lane, which is just a tank that's going to be able to beat him out and stall him out in the laning phase. GAM, not feeling great, not losing by any standard in this game, although they are starting to bleed out gold as the Rift Herald gets traded for another bot tower here.
And the gold being concentrated on the Jax actually makes for a very interesting map situation where it could happen. Oh, he needs to be careful. He's still in the miasma. Okay, DNK walking away. But yeah, it could happen that Jax is just committed to a side lane. Then all your power is actually in the side lane. And if you overcommit to a fight in the 4v4, then you are in a severe disadvantage. So SBTC playing a super close early game against GAM, which is already impressive. But more impressive to me is actually that they're losing in kills, which is not the way GAM games go if they're close for the most part. They are usually the ones that are 1 to 6 down in kills, but up in gold because they have much better macro and just try to play around all the objectives. Now they're still ahead in Dragons and can play for the Dragon Snowball, but SBTC is more than ready to fight this third Dragon now. They do have the full tank, so it's even more valuable for them. So I feel like they will make their stand right now in like 30 seconds when it comes to the next dragon. Look at the vision setup. Actually already securing good vision around the dragon as well. So SBTC has recovered from a few early blunders, and this could really be the first marker that decides the game, or at least the direction of the game for the next 10 minutes. Whoever wins this fight might be able to snowball to a victory.
And it's been big because, again, it's the structure damage that got them out of it. They lost 2 towers, but you can never make up for the plate gold that ended up going down. You can never make up for the first blood tower. And all of that kind of brings it together. And SBTC has interior pressure here in the river. They have to worry about what DNK is going to be capable of doing. You got to be worried about the miasma, too. So far, Cotty has controlled fights so well. They have to play around this Cassiopeia a little better than they have for the majority of the game. As Paulette ready on a side angle here to prep things. GAM is encroaching on their territory, looking for this dragon. Getting the third dragon would be a huge W for GAM
to be able to take
this game despite being in a game. They're going to flip it. They're going to see what they can happen. DNK shuts off the lights. They're going to be able to run in. That's going to be the dragon. Reset now in the back of the pit. There's one going down. A Styles going to fall. They don't have an ADC anymore. Ember is taking a lot of damage on the front line. That's going to be a dragon taken here by Levi, who's going to flash back over the wall. DN1 is actually cutting off an escape route. So now
Slater
just has to fight in the pit, or they're going to be in a really bad situation. Kiai jumps in to try to find something. Kiai is going to find one immediately. Now the rest of Dia or everybody else on the SE is kind of split up across everybody, but there's just too much damage already laid into the side of GAM, as they're going to lose nearly every member of this team. Kiaya goes over the wall. They see where he's going to be. They're actually not going to chase him. I wouldn't want to chase the Counter-Strike Jax here at this point either. They're going to get his TP, as that's going to be it. Fight's going to be done 3 for 1, I believe, in the grand scheme of things for the side of SBTC. They do lose the dragon, though, so GAM gets the win condition and gets out. I wouldn't say unscathed, but definitely not as bad as it could have been.
What an insane fight from the bot lane from SBTC. Keep your eyes on both Paulette and Slater, but especially Slater, how he plays these situations where he's only a level 10 Zeri, but he goes so aggressive. And look at Kati. Kati can't deal with him. Didn't even buy some more time, but Slater once again kites around, gets so much damage, and even when the Jax jumps on top of him, with the help of Emper and Paulette still causing some chaos on the other side of the fight, Slater is able to get back into the pit and deal so much damage. This is an early game Zeri still. This is not boding well for GAM's late game situation when Slater gets even stronger. So it's getting spicy. We're dead even in gold, but yet another dragon went over to GAM. So next time, SBTC doesn't have to play. They have to adapt the way they fight these, or set up the fights, because it's not enough just to be there. They actually need to take the dragon away from Levi's grasp, because the next one is gonna be the soul point. So even though they won the fight and it actually revitalized their chances in this game, the dragon going over can be detrimental to their chances, because now GAM is in a situation where they can always choose. Do we go Baron? Do we go for Dragon? Because the enemy team will only get 1 Dragon if we trade it for Baron, which is always a nice trade for their side. But SPTC can't commit to that trade, because then it's going to be a soul for GAM. So macro-wise and just for the rest of the game, GAM in a really comfortable position. But in the fights, it's still very close.
On one hand, part of me is like, okay, Mountain Soul is going to be awesome because, you know, some of these champions don't have quite the upfront damage to just kind of crush through somebody. The Leandries will eventually tick away. It's more of a damage over time kind of build here for the Talia, so it's not affected that much. But like Nocturne basically is going to be half a champion. You know, Casante's damage is going to be completely clipped if the Mountain Soul goes through, especially with the resistances added. On the other hand, 5 people having shields 100% of the time means that Slater is just going to get shields permanently inside of fights with his Runehands. Which is beneficial. Again, the resistances are something to overcome, but I don't think a 2 Mountain Soul stack is going to make the difference once you're on 6 items for this area. And again, permanent shielding sounds pretty good, especially you go Bloodthirster, you have the shield bow, you get this permanent shield draining from everything else coming through. So GAM, to me, they have a quicker kind of window. They buy themselves more time to strike if they get this Mountain Soul, because it's going to be harder for them to deal with right at the beginning, as opposed to waiting for 6 items when then Talia is going to start doing more damage and Slater's going to be able to start draining them. Slater gets ulted. That's going to go over the wall. Now the control of that can... yeah, I mean... That's just SBTC East. They're split way too many directions. Great play from Xin to be able to put the ultimate down onto Slater, and now the Baron is there. Like, there's absolutely no fighting back against the Baron. They could grab up some towers, try to get any amount of gold back here in exchange, but I just do not think it's going to end up mattering all that much.
What a trap from Carti and GAM in general. They started Baron. SBTC actually reacted in time. They spotted it. They came close to contesting the Baron, but GAM changed their plans, and they... Oh, what a beautiful Cassiopeia flank. Just unbelievable. Not even flank, just a straight setup, and that's the Baron now for GAM. Finally, they crack open the game and get into a better position than just even gold. This is now the first really big advantage for GAM, and they're still sitting on the soul point, and it's coming up in 1 minute, so the combat stats, the extra power from the Baron is going to persist for that fight, and SBTC will have to fight, and they don't have the third item for Slater. Suddenly, all is pointing GAM's way.
Yeah, he's backing now, so either he's got components ready or he's got the item. He's been sitting on the pickaxe for quite some time, so I'm waiting to see what it is that they buy. No, it's actually going to be the Lord Doms, potentially. So the Last Whisper helps a little bit with the resistances that are there for the Mountain Soul. But again, this feels like a flip. I do want to put this out there, which is that they're going to grab this bottom tower. They're going to do some damage with the Baron. If they waste too much time at Dragon and don't end up getting it, they're actually kind of throwing away the Baron advantage a little bit. So if I were GAM, I would consider even maybe giving this Dragon away to get this gold advantage much higher than it is right now, so that they can continue to clamp off SBTC's chances. Right now, Soul's a win condition, but it's not so much of a win condition that you wouldn't take 3,000 or 4,000 gold in exchange for a single Dragon in recompense. As SBTC Esports pushed up so far in the mid lane. They get an interior tower for DNK and Slater. Now they can turn around, but they might have lost a lot of positioning here that would have been necessary for the
Nocturne is here.
DNK jumping in immediately. Palette's going to cut them off, or everybody's going to get cut off, as the wall's going to make sure that they can't walk into their own jungle. Now Zin's taking a bunch of damage to dive. Palette is going to get brought down, and in the back line, Kiaya does so much. That was a gambit if I've ever seen one before. They thought they could win that fight so fast as Kiaya jumps back in. Vi's going to jump in now. Levi wants a little bit more, but I don't think they're going to end up winning. Now they give up the Mountain Soul in exchange, too. And with a member off the map with the health bars the way that they are, I wouldn't be surprised if mid tower ends up falling, too. There's no way to make this defense happen if you're SBTC Esports. That might have been the domino that kind of tips this game completely in the favor of GAM. Especially with all the gold that's going to come through. Dia1 is staying here way too long. One errant ability is all that's necessary to bring him down, but this should be it. And with them staying so long, they have to be worried, because again, their health bars aren't high. They could just continue to siege. They didn't end up backing. I would have just given up mid tower, maybe even mid inhibitor, to make sure that they didn't have to stay on the map this long. But it's not going to be the case. They're not going to worry about it. Now Enper fighting up against Kiaya.
Should be able to get the kill here to place it.
W comes through. Flash burnt by Kiaya, as Enper is still a threat.
Yeah, Enpen all out, especially against no mana. Kiaya can still do something, but they lose yet another tower. And now look at the situation after everything has transpired. GAM is really far ahead with all the combat stats from the Dragons, with already gold lead. So the actual gold lead in team fights, especially also if you consider items built already, is more likely or more akin to something like a 6-7k instead of the 3k on your screen. So it is going to be a very hard fight for SBTC, quite an uphill battle. Maybe they can get a pick on Xin to start their clawing their way back into the game here. This should be an easy setup to get yet another kill onto Slater. Not entirely sure what Xin was thinking or doing there. A breath of fresh air, maybe from SBTC, and more time to get a little more gold on Slater. He needs kind of 2 more items to be the main carry of the team, and probably needs 2 more items to cut through all the shields, through all the power and the HP bars from GAM. But if he gets there for an Elder Dragon or something like that, there is still a fighting chance for SBTC.
Yes. Remind me also, does the Caulfields build into Lord Doms, or did he dip into the bow in order to get a bit of penetration, and then he's quickly kind of advancing on Navori? Because I'm pretty sure
he's going Navori. Yeah, he's building Navori right now, but which I think is probably correct.
Dip is what it was. Yeah, okay, that makes a lot more sense. I think that makes a lot of sense with the additional resistances. So it is a genius play coming out here from Slater, who has to do a lot of this big label carrying, because Xin has had his number and his flash ulted him a couple times in this game, but realistically, there hasn't really been the greatest of threats onto Slater most of the time. Kiaya hasn't found Paydirt getting onto him. Levi hasn't found a bunch of success finding ultimates into this area either. I wouldn't find it impossible for Slater to live a very long time in a fight unless they get one of these dive tools into him. So that is maybe the one opening that SBTC has in these fights, is that if Xin cannot ult him, there's very, very difficult times trying to get anything onto Slater. Is Zeri the one little bit of kind of light in the darkness here for SBTC Esports, especially when they're only down 4K. I know I say only at 45 minutes, like that's not a massive gold lead or something like that. But truthfully, it feels like it could be a lot more. SBTCE has stayed relevant in this game, and a lot of that has come down to being able to pour a bunch of gold from the early turrets into Slater has meant that their team fighting has not been terrible. Their kind of dueling in general has not been terrible in a lot of circumstances. They're resilient, if nothing else.
Yeah, and on the side of SBTC, now I need to see if they can actually execute their team composition, because this is the downfall of so many VCS teams that try to play these very complicated compositions, because this is not a strict front-to-back. Definitely not. We have Casanti, who doesn't really excel on front-to-back as much. He likes to be a little bit of a wild card in team fights and wait for his time to really go all out and kill someone in 1v1. And then we have Nocturne, who is really bad in front to back, usually, if he doesn't have the huge dive partner like Shen, so he wants something special to happen too. Same goes for Rakan to a different degree, not quite as reliant on that, but in this composition I'd argue Rakan can't afford to just go fly into the backline and get instantly annihilated by Kati, so they have to find a way to rethink their comp and rely on Slater to carry them, but maybe protect Slater with their dive champions turned into anti-dive. Maybe if someone goes on Slater, Emper can ult him away, so you can duel someone like Kiaya or Levi and buy some space for Slater, because I feel like if they overcommit into the dive, they will die.
Palette's on a bit of a flank. I think I like what you're saying, and I'll distill it even further. I just don't want to see SBTC Esports go willy-nilly engaging with the NK ultimate, with anybody like that.
Here we go.
I say that, and Palette immediately jumps in. They're going to try to find a more front-to-back style fight. They actually get a lot of damage, while the Feather Pool does pull Palette immediately. There's a bit of damage onto multiple members here on GAM Esports. Slater's going to get jumped on and immediately die, and I spoke way too soon. Because, again, as soon as Palette is out, there is no peel for this Zeri. There is nothing preventing them from walking in. Emper wasn't able to use the ultimate to kind of pull anybody away, which is the only other way to actually do it. But I'm not going to put that on Emper by any standard whatsoever. That is, we were trying to tell them. We tried to tell them.
Rebel, I've been trying for so many.
What did they do immediately afterwards?
Rebel, I've been trying for years. This is a gripe I have with the VCS teams for such a long time, and there are only two teams really that have been able to avoid this or buck this trend, which are GAM and Cerberus, the two team fighting teams that can actually understand how to play defensive team fights. SBTC once again prove that they cannot withstand their thirsty, their horny engage sense. There's no sense. This makes absolutely no sense. If you just freeze the frame there and ask the players, will they win this fight? Everyone will tell you no. There's no way we can win. They have Cassiopeia, they have Isaiah. We can't win by diving onto their players, especially against Mountain Soul, and they still do it because they are so they see Rakan and they need to go in because that's the Rakan sense. But this is one of the gripes I have with the VCS teams, and unfortunately SBTC show it once again. Now I don't feel like they can really win a fight anymore.
This is your last ditch effort. This is everything that you can. You're gonna throw it all out there and see whether or not it works. Levi on the left side of the fight. Emperor is gonna be able to do something. And Slater actually is decent damage at the beginning of this fight to be able to actually put out. And now Gam actually gets an assassination onto Zai to kick things off. Slater.
Oh, good flash!
The back of the fight. Kiaya is too damn good. He's able to get back, but he's going to go down. There he is. Slater's gonna go out. Dia1's gonna go out. The divers of the side of Gam are doing a lot better in this game as opposed to anybody else. And Kiaya not having to burn the flash was so pivotal in the last fight because you saw the way that it actually paid off massive here in this fight, killing off Slater, killing off the chances of SBTC Esports, and now to hell with the Elder Dragon, to hell with any other objectives on the map. DNK's here, but you do not care. Nocturne's not going to do anything to stop this game from going over to GAM and them killing up 1-0.
Yeah, this was such a masterclass once again in team fighting. GAM this is the biggest thing that changed from GAM from summer to maybe spring. They are now by far and away the best team fighting team. Back in summer, there were still teams that could fight against them. Aphelios for Shogun, for example, was one of the comps where SGB was actually consistently beating GAM. But right now in spring, No one can stand up to them in team fights. They will fall behind sometimes in early game, but they make up for it